Hello, this video is going to look at the level 3 grill frame and then the assembly of the frame and all the internal parts thereof. I need about 6.5 inches of material between each island, the capital or the base, and I've laid off 3.5 inches. 3.25 is what I need, plus a little bit for the slopes going up to the capital and the base. So 3.5 inches, and I'm drawing that out to 3/4 by 3/8 of an inch. I'm using the peen and my cross peen here to get things started, and then I'm just going to true up the fore and aft and then move to the bick and do most of my gross work over the bick. Once I've got the forging close enough at the bick, I'm just going to move to the face and dress all the surfaces. I chamfer the corners before I go over the whole thing with a flatter. You don't need a big hit with a flatter, just give it a tap with your hand hammer and that's all you need to make the surfaces smooth. It doesn't take a whack from hell. Once you've finished with the flatter, check your measurements and then offer it up against your drawing to see if it's going to fit. I intend to recess my stiles into those capitals or bases, and so I'm just going to cut with my hacksaw, chisel out the offending material and then file to suit. Here are my top and bottom rails, and you can see they're reasonably matched. So now it's time to move on with the center stile. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a test piece for the welded collars. I need to know how far the bar stretches or shrinks. I know it's going to stretch. So first thing I've done, a couple of datums. I'm going to put some dividers in there, record that measurement. It doesn't matter what it is, just as long as I've got it recorded. I'm going to draw down or neck in the center portion of the bar to about 1/2 inch diameter. So I've taken it down to square and now just octagon and then to round. Once I've got the forging to round, I'm just going to dress the forging inside the anvil, and then I'm going to concentrate on making the collar material. I've made enough of these collar swages to know that they are all different. So it may be that you use 3/8 round bar for your collar material. It may be that you use 3/8 square bar for your collar material. You're just going to have to do some test pieces and work that out for yourself. In my case, I'm using 3/8 round here, and I'm bringing that to 1/2 inch, 1/2 round. So that makes it a 1/4 inch thick, and we need that to work out the circumference or the real circumference of our collar material. In order to have the collar meet with the ends parallel, I have to trim them off to a slight angle beforehand, about 60 degrees or so, which is a chisel cut. I've already worked out my collar dimensions, not the subject of this particular video, and then I've nicked the bar there. That's all I need to do, because I need to bend this around into a horseshoe shape, and then I'm going to start to think about furthering that cut. Again, I'm not going to cut it off at that stage. I need that cut, or I need the parent bar to hold this piece in the fire while I take a heat. So leave the collar material hanging on, get it close so you can wring it off with a pair of tongs, but don't cut all the way through. And at this stage, your center bar should be heating in the fire. This is a weld that's going to be on the inside, so the middle of the material, the center stile, needs to be hot. So that should be your prime consideration. Here's mine, it's all hot. Now I'm just going to close the collar around, and I'm looking for a slight gap, or thereabouts an inch, a 1/16 of an inch or so is what I'm aiming for, and I'm just about at that, I believe. And that gives me room then to shrink the collar onto the center stile, as well as shrinking it to the ends match. If the ends touch going in, all you're going to do is make a ring that's going to loosely fit on the center stile. Once you've got the collar welded, give it a good brush, get rid of any flux, etc. Straighten it out, any twists, because you were twisting it in the bottom and top sway, so there may be some twisting action take place. Remove those, dress it with a file, and then I'd give it a good soak in some vinegar to get rid of any of the flux or hard scale that's still on the piece. Then the last step is to go back and check your datums. You've got the dividers already set, you've got your two center punch marks that you can just about see there. And now we're going to offer up the dividers and see what change in measurements. And I've got about 3/8 of an inch, which is 3/16 per side. And that's the important bit. For the outer stile bars, I'm just going to remove the corners and then produce two tenons, one on either end. Dress all four surfaces, and then you're ready to take a little chamfer on the end in preparation for an upset, in preparation for the tenon. I bump about 1/8 of an inch into the end here. I chamfer so it's going to move that upset further in the bar to where I need it. I dress the sides to the parallel, and then I cut for my tenon, and we're obliged to come back at least half the thickness of the bar. And at that stage I'm working with a 3/4 inch bar, so I come back 3/8 of an inch. Take it down to square section, 3/8 square, draw that out, so I've now got a 3/8 round tenon, and then I shrink that down to 5/16, so hopefully I'll get no evidence of the mortise when I fit this thing together. Although mine is going to be buried in those capital and bases, so you're not going to see any of my mortise. I'm going to dress the remaining upset, and you can see that's going to sharpen my shoulders there. And then I'm going to monkey. My monkey tool has a slight convex face, leaving me with a slightly concave shoulder, so I don't high center on the tenon. I like to thread the ends of my tenon so I can use wing nuts to hold the frame together rather than rely on clamps. And you can see there I've got a slight concavity to the shoulder. Once you've got your rails and your stile sorted out, then I would go along them and check them all for straight and square. Here I'm using two bits of angle iron. One has got a fairly large V in, and as I come down I'm looking through that V at the rear one, and I can see I've got a slight twist. So just go about taking all the twists out and then check it against the rule for flat. The beauty of the threaded tenons is I don't need any pipe clamps or other sort of clamps to hold this thing together. So once I've checked it for square, and I'm looking reasonably square here, and as a misplaced mortise or a misplaced tenon, a slight bend will throw the whole frame out of square. So check those. So now I can put some spaces in the corner, and that will support the scroll and leaving room or leaving clearance for the water leaf. I'm just going to check to make sure that my upset corners are about parallel with the styles, and if they look right, they are right. Don't worry about the little details. And then I'm just going to mark for my center hole in the center style. I'm going to center punch and letter stamp or number punch so I know which one fits where in the grill. They're all individual and they're all individually placed. Once I've got that, drill out the center of the scroll there to accept a 5/16 bolt in my case, and then mark the pinch points. Notice how I'm moving that block away so it's not obstructing my vision. I just want to see where the scroll is contacting the frame. Mark center, and then I drill and tap. My scrolls are going to get screwed in place, not riveted. I find that much more convenient. When I drill, I use a little bit of channel iron bolted to my table drill, and that supports the curve of the scroll. Little bacon fat, and then in I go, and I'm going to thread that. I think I'm using a number 1024 thread. Once you've got that tapped, then you're going to turn your attention to the center hole. I'm going to cut this, and I'm cutting on the line. So I'm going to be left with slightly less than half of the hole. And that really helps when you're fitting it into the frame. Click, there it is. Take the frame apart, drill and countersink, and then you can screw the scrolls into place. That's what I'm doing here. And that's really handy. It saves me having to get a bucking bar or something under there if I need to head over the rivets. Turning my attention to the beveled C scrolls, leave one scroll open and drill it for a countersunk screw. You're going to screw the whole of the grill together. There's my countersunk. We know this scroll is going to get finished, and that's going to change the shape of that hole. So drill it slightly more than you need, and or just take a file to the head of the bolt and just make it smaller than you need. Again, I'm using I think it's a 5/16 by 18, and that's just because that's what my hardware store carries. I would have gone for a fine thread if I could get it without it being a number 8 bolt. I'm going to finish this scroll around a scroll form. Notice I've got a center point mark there, and that really helps. Otherwise you're chasing that scroll around forever. So one clearance, one threaded, assemble. You'll notice my top right scroll is just a little thicker than the others, so I'm going to have to do something about that before I start to finish this grill. But there we are, ready to start collaring. Checking my forged collar. I'm going to show both, but I'm checking my forged collar, and that seems to be a reasonable fit. So I'm just going to adjust my grill there. You see the shiny bit. Here's my forged collar. I'm going to squeeze this with ever smaller bolt jaw tongs until it fits, and then I'm going to offer it into my collar making or collar bending jig. I've got the collar as close as I can with my tongs, so I'm just going to go to the jig because I know that's going to work, and I just nip that up and I get a nice firm collar, and then that holds the collar in place as it cools down and contracts, so it's not going to open up on me. Give it a nice wire brush, and then when it gets cold enough, a little bit of wax. If you like this style of forging, I have 3 books available to support your study. Visit markaspery.com. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing to this channel. I'll see you next time.